recording, but then it was weird. Something happened and then it stopped. But, I think somebody else tried to record and that like messed it up or something, but I don't know. I do not know the ways of the world. Hello, friend that joined.
Aurélien, bonjour.
Julian. Probably messed that up.
He's on a bus or train, I can't tell.
Oh,
it's a train. Nice.
he's muted, but I think he knows he's muted. Yeah, probably loud on a train. Oh, he has to be quiet. Yeah. That's okay. He could just listen. That's fine. Listen to us ramble on. So does anybody have anything that's on their mind that they want to talk about?
Oh yeah. Actually, I wasn't planning to join the call, but I was I was just kind of reflecting my day when I came back home. Just taking a bath and all that, and I find it to be really relaxing. I think what's on my mind was I was kind of contemplating my day. Like I was thinking of, I have some unwholesome behavior. I have some unwholesome thoughts. And weirdly, I wasn't feeling judgmental about it. I was just being aware that it had happened. I think it's kind of cool. Like I become less judgmental over the months. I remember the first time when I started practicing this Dharma. I was always judgmental. I mean, I still am, but it's getting less. I think what I was trying to say is how nice it is to reflect on the things I don't do well, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm judging myself. I was curious, you have any thoughts on that?
Would anybody like to comment on that?
I've had notice that, once I started being able to gladden myself, I was then in that boat that, well, why am I not doing it now? Or it's like when some feeling comes that's unwholesome, or some thought comes that's unwholesome, and I can't immediately get rid of it, then I was judging myself for that. And it was like, well, now you know how to gladden yourself, you should be able to do it all the time, and so what I came to is, of course, what has been taught, which is that the next part of being okay is being okay with not being okay, or with something not feeling good, to be okay with that also. And that's really where I do need some practice, that I need a lot of practice around that, I feel.
Yeah.
That, things come and go. One time Dhammarato said in a call that we're never really over anything. It all comes back. And so the thing is, like, when it comes, then how do I relate to it? That's the difference, And so and to practice to it.
Did Dhammarato say that? That's really interesting.
I mean, it was in context with whoever he was talking to at the time,
Oh yeah, I mean, because it makes sense. I think
before you go, Ivan, I wanted just to say one more thing before you go, which is he also said that the weed whacking analogy. Have you heard of it? The whacking off of the weeds.
Yeah.
When the weeds come up, you whack them. When the weeds come up, you whack them. And the more you do that, the more you weaken the roots. And then the idea is that it comes up less after that, And so that's something to look forward to. So maybe these two things in combination, that on the one hand, yes, everything comes back, but yes, I cut it off every time, maybe it weakens it over time.
Yeah. Very good. Welcome, new friend, whoever joined. We're just chilling.
Okay.
I'm just here to listen. I'm just at work right now.
Oh, hi, Jordan.
Cool.
Hello.
That's nice. You can listen to Dhamma talks. That's cool.
Yeah, I was just thinking of what Paul said on what Dhammarato said, things will come back. I think it kind of makes sense. Sometimes I'm kind of ignorant. I have this idea, oh, it will never come back. Therefore, setting myself out for failure. But if I understand that, well, it will come back and that's okay. I just have to throw it out again. Yeah, that really makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a dog owner, you know. A good dog owner doesn't necessarily mean you have to have those dogs that are like military super trained, only bark, only look, only do everything on command. That's not the goal. The goal of a good dog owner, it doesn't mean that your dog is never going to mess up. Your dog is never going to not bark. You know, it doesn't mean that your dog will never sneak a food off the table once in a while. You know, it's like a good dog is a happy, healthy dog that barks sometimes, that plays, that makes mistakes sometimes. That's a healthy dog. You know, if you want to be a super strict dog, that's not in balance. You know, that's military, that's war. You know what I mean? But if you want a happy, healthy dog, that's a happy, healthy mind. You're going to have things come up. You're going to have unwholesome thoughts come up. You're going to mess up in your practice yourself. That's all part of it. Can you be okay with messing up once in a while? Can you be okay with not being perfect? This idea of the golden Buddha we have in our mind that has to be perfect. I can never get angry. I must always be floating on a cloud of bliss. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Give up that search. Give up that goal. I must be perfect. Like Dhammarato says, we don't have to get it right. We just have to get it happily. In a relaxed way. And it's good to remind ourselves, what does nibbana mean? And that's the true goal. Nibbana, like everyone probably here already knows, but I'll say just if people are listening and are new, nibbana they said it in the Pali language in the Buddha's time, and they still say it in Thailand today, used for food, to take food off of the fire and to cool it down. And that's what we're doing with our mind. Hi, Michael.
Oh, hi, Michael.
Hello.
And we're just learning to cool down our mind, you know, like they used it for food, cooling down the food from the fire. And it's such a great thing. And it's so subtle to be overlooked of what nibbana means. You know, oftentimes we'll get trapped in the myriad of things we could discuss with Buddhism and the Dhamma. But when we remember the goal in mind of nibbana, it's a reminder of like, it's not some crazy puzzle to solve. It's not some crazy, only the super intellectual can understand. It's a very practical, very real thing that all of us here have the ability to do now, not in the future, not in the past, now, to just relax, to just be a relaxed person with a relaxed mindset, with a happy spirit, with a light heart. Good things will happen in life, bad things will happen in life, but we don't see them as good as bad. We just see them as things happen. Nothing can disturb us. Hi, new friend. How's it going?
Good.
Oh, hi, Jonah.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, I had a question actually, or something I wanted to talk about. I wrote it down somewhere. Let me find it. Yeah, maybe if we could talk about Paticca Samuppada. Do you know it?
If I know it, it's just something I'm doing inadvertently that somebody else would call that.
Yeah, it's sometimes I find these new words, or phrases, and I tend to Google them, and I tend to end up on Wikipedia, and
What's the
it's
phrase
so
again?
confusing sometimes.
Dependent origination. He's talking about the links
Yeah.
of the dependent origination.
Yeah, shit happens because other shit happens.
One thing leads to another.
Mhm. Yeah. So what was your question, bud?
Well, if you could, or if someone could
That would be
maybe
Michael.
explain this concept a little more.
Yeah, if you don't like the shit happens because other shit happens, Michael will have a more classic definition. I don't know if he's willing to share with us.
Probably at work.
Dependent origination is really interesting. I mean, not always, but I often think about it. I think my understanding in a very casual way is this leads to that and that leads to this, and it's everything always starts from ignorance. That's because there's they call it 12 dependent origination, right? So the first one always start with ignorance. And my understanding is sometimes people ask this very classic question, which is, well, what leads to ignorance? Well, from my understanding is ignorance is always there. Nothing, it just starts from there. Like nothing leads to that because we are just, all of us are ignorant as long as the sati is not present, at least as long as the wisdom is not present. And my understanding is, I'm not sure which step it is. The contact, right? I mean, the senses. I'm not sure which step is it, but the senses will. I mean, everything, we are always bombarded by senses. The sight, the touch, the smell, and the mind. And once the contact is just make contact, I mean, the sense, that's where everything just starts snowballing. And one thing I really like, my understanding is before whatever it is make contact with the senses, can you be aware of that? If you can be aware of that, there's a lot of control we can have over that. Oh, Michael, I prefer Michael explaining it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways it can be explained. The way that I'll sort of talk about it right now is a metaphor I like to use. And some of you guys have heard me use this before. Instead of going through the links, that can be really dry and have no effect if you just talk about the links. But it's a change of view. Well, first of all, it's an expansion on the Four Noble Truths. It's like the Four Noble Truths in detail. But the way that I like to explain it is, all of our ancestors, all of our human ancestors at some point used to look at natural processes, and not knowing the origin of these processes would develop certain feelings of uncertainty or rapture or confusion or fear based on them. So the one that I'll use as an example is the one I like is a storm, or perhaps a drought even. So all of our human ancestors, when a storm would arise, if upon the arising of that storm, they experienced sort of a feeling of uncertainty, then in response or reaction to that feeling of uncertainty, they experienced fear. And then from that fear response, that's craving, right? So the ignorance is not knowing how a storm appears. Then so that's ignorant contact, right? The point of experiencing a phenomena is contact, and contact can be either ignorant or wise. It can be either, contact with knowledge of its origination or without knowledge of its origination. So that would be contact without knowledge of its origination would be ignorant contact. So the storm arises, and there's ignorant contact because our ancestors didn't know that how storms arose. And that would lead to an ignorant feeling, a feeling of uncertainty, insecurity about it. And then the reaction, the emotional reaction of fear, that's the craving. And then following the craving is the clinging. And the clinging manifests as narratives, stories that the mind creates. So in this example, the fearful reaction would lead to stories about angry gods, for example. And then those stories about gods being angry would lead to the formation of rules, rites, rituals, religions, things like that. And these rites and rituals are used to control the fear. So then that leads to existence, which is the next link. So we believe that that storm has a god in it. We've personified it. So from that ignorant contact, it leads to personification, which is a form of selfing. So we personified nature due to our lack of understanding of how nature works, how natural processes originate. That's dependent origination in terms of looking at natural processes. And then, so then there's the existence of gods and goddesses in nature, rites, rules, and rituals to control the fear or the pleasure in response to them. And then all of the suffering that comes from that. And then, so when we had the scientific revolution, the philosophers that became the scientists, they called this the law of determinism. They noticed that nature actually follows basic laws that give rise to things. So in the case of a storm, we understand that the combination of atmospheric pressure, positive and negative ions in the sky and the ground, blah, 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 all these different conditions, when they come together, give rise to a storm. So once that right knowledge enters the mind, the contact then that follows is wise contact. When a storm forms, we know that it's just arising due to natural causes and conditions. That's the knowledge of dependent origination. And because of that, then there's no uncertain feeling that arises. There's no fear that arises. There's no stories. There's no rites, rules, and rituals. There's no selfing. There's no personification. There's no suffering. Now, the way that the Buddha...
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering about the ignorance part, because you said ignorance arises due to us not knowing, or due to them not knowing how the storm arises, or what a storm is, maybe. But I would rather see it as like the ignorance part being them depending on good weather, for example, to be satisfied. Isn't that like the ignorance part?
Well, the ignorance part in this broad example would be not understanding the origination of things. So when we don't understand the origin of things, then we make up reasons for them being there, right? This applies to all of our life. For example, you may wake up and be dehydrated, and that feeling of dehydration may be mistaken as a feeling of anxiety. And then that feeling of anxiety that you've interpreted the dehydration for can then be blamed on, something that you forgot to do or something that you need to do. And really there's nothing there, just the base feeling was just dehydration. And then that dehydration, not being aware that it was dehydration, instead of taking a drink of water, you attributed it to, you named it anxiety, you gave the anxiety a story. So it applies to everything, but to finish the analogy, when we understand the origination of a storm, we no longer develop that uncertain feeling, we no longer develop that fear response, we no longer personify it. The existence of gods and goddesses in nature, personification of nature then ceases, and then the suffering that comes with the rites, rules, and rituals, basically the suffering that comes with superstition, ceases as well. And now, so dependent origination, as it is nested within the Four Noble Truths, it applies really to just the one phenomena of dukkha, and for the purpose of dukkha nirodha. So really what the Buddha was trying to just understand was the origination of dukkha. And so, he constellated our experience. He saw that experience is not made up of like a soul experience in the world. It's a constellation of activities. He called the 5 aggregates: the aggregate of form, the aggregate of feeling, the aggregate of perception, the aggregate of thinking, and the aggregate of consciousness or awareness. And he saw that each of these aggregates are ownerless. They exist within their own domains. They operate by their own nature, and that we constellate these aggregates due to our lack of understanding of their nature into a sense of self. But so, not understanding how the body mind works, we personify it in the same way that our ancestors used to personify a storm. So, but I mean, and then that leads to so, it really kind of hinges, the crux of dependent origination is that point of contact where the body mind is impacted by a feeling, and then the feeling is felt as pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant, which could be a neutral feeling, but it also could be a feeling that we're uncertain about. And we have reactions of wanting towards pleasant feelings. We have reactions of resisting to unpleasant feelings, and we have reactions of confusion or distraction towards that neutral feeling. And then that leads to the clinging, which is the taking possession of or the creating a story about the emotional reaction. And then that creates a sense of me and mine, which is that existence. And then that creates a sense of birth, aging, illness, and death, and suffering. So this is the dependent origination of suffering that the Buddha talked about. And when that contact is ignorant, not knowing the origination of experience, but also not understanding how experience arises accompanied by suffering, then we don't know what to do about it. But with the Four Noble Truths, we see that everything, all suffering has, one single cause, which is craving. Craving can only arise in the habitat of ignorance. And then so it becomes very clear how to undo suffering when you understand its origination. That's how the knowledge of dependent origination fits within the Four Noble Truths, and why, when it's seen clearly, it becomes almost impossible to suffer. Not quite impossible, because you still contend with, a whole lifetime of bad habits and conditioning that's already there. But as Dhammarato points out, in this practice, the practice of being satisfied, like what Buddhadasa was just talking about, of experiencing that little nibbana in experience now, is making a mind fit for work. A happy mind is a mind that sees things clearly. And in the early part of the training, you have to train the mind to be happy and satisfied with both wholesome and unwholesome conditions as they arise and pass. When a wholesome state arises, you celebrate it, you enjoy it, but you have a mind of letting go, knowing that it's going to pass. And when an unwholesome state arises, like a bad mood, then you understand that through the perception of impermanence, that its coming is the beginning of its going, and then you delight in the ability to let it go. And so that the delight in the Dhamma then becomes the ability to let things go rather than hold on to things.
Very well said. Does anybody else want to add on or discuss another question or talk about whatever they wish?
I want to point out that your question, Jonas, was in there, I feel, at the point of reactivity. So when you were saying like, well, if we're depending on good weather to feel happy, then Michael was addressing that by saying that, you depend on certain circumstances to feel good and others to feel bad. And it's a kind of the reactivity that comes a little bit later in that particular list of things.
That would be the craving, right? When something pleasant arises, we hold on to it, we identify with it. Oh, I'm a person who loves sunny weather. I can't live in a place that's cloudy, Everything takes the form of a story. Craving is the author, but the world that craving creates takes the form of a story. So we live in and as these stories. And one thing that comes with seeing the Four Noble Truths is you start to see them as stories rather than as who and what you are.
Mm.
So craving meaning the like the desire to be more satisfied, something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can take that form. Any Dhammarato, I think he has a practical way of talking about craving, wanting things we don't have is painful. It's actually putting the second and first noble truth together in slightly different order. Wanting things we don't have is painful. So if you're satisfied and you want more satisfaction, that's craving. Any sense of lack. If you wake up in a bad mood and you feel like you shouldn't be in a bad mood or you want to be in a good mood, that's craving. You know. But if you
It's
wake
like
up, go ahead.
it's like for a lot of beginners when they start Dhamma practice, it's a good craving to want to learn more, to want to study, to want to have a general understanding of what's going on, what the Buddha was about, what the Pali Canon is about. But as you progress in practice, that same desire that once was good can turn bad. If you attach too strongly to it. So it's not a matter of it's like we used to talk in our last calls about alcohol. Is alcohol good? Is alcohol bad? It's alcohol's a drink. We make it good. We make it bad. The pursuit of Dhamma, whether you're a beginner or an experienced practitioner, if it's out of balance, if it's not getting to the root of what we're doing, if it's causing dukkha, these are bad attachments. You know, dukkha, the things that cause us anxiety, fear, hatred, delusion, all these things. Anything you do, you can call it Buddhism, you can call it the Dhamma. If it's causing you dukkha, it's not true Dhamma practice. True Dhamma practice, as Michael was saying, is letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, at first we see the pointer finger pointing at the moon. So many, even seasoned practitioners, they fall in love with the finger pointing to the moon. They fall in love with the way the finger looks, the curves of its edges, the reflection in the light of the moon, you know, and they get lost in it. And like Dhammarato says, kind of like suck. Why does life suck? Because we're suckling on the finger, on the pointer. It's like the forest, the beautiful forest with all its waterfalls and deliciousness is this way. Don't fall in love with the finger, you know. And a lot of people they just don't see that. It's like, it reminds me of the old Hindu teachings, when they would tell the student, you know, you're God. And the student just didn't want to hear that he's God. He didn't believe him. He didn't want to hear it. What the student wanted was fetters. What the student wanted was periods of meditation, was organization, was labels, rites, rituals, superstition. He wanted to spin around in 3 circles and know that he could cure this and cure that and fly around maybe. So the guru had no choice but to give him all those things he wanted. You want to dance in circles, you want to wear robes, you want to light incense, you want to spin around 5 times, okay, go ahead. And he's, because he's not going to fight. He's not going to fight the student. He doesn't care. You want all those things that will deter you from the true easiness, true nature of reality, then go do those things. Reality's here, right now. It's not in a book. The Buddha didn't even know what a Pali Canon was. Buddha didn't even know what Buddhism was or a Buddha was. You know, he called himself Tathagata. You know, we make up these words, we make up these terms. If the Buddha thought the Pali Canon was so important, he would have written a couple chapters, but he didn't. Other people did, because otherworldly people are attached to, there's something special here. Now let's make it a religion. Let's make it a chore. Let's make it a job, like we all do, you know. We have a natural tendency to do that as human beings, to take something, and it can be useful. It can be useful religion. It can be useful work. But with the Dhamma practice, letting go is it's a very subtle art form. Letting go of everything. It's just relaxing. It's not a puzzle box. It's not yet another question and answer test in high school or university. It's just relaxing. This is the true point of the Dhamma practice, is letting go. The Dhamma is the fruit of that practice, allowing you to see what's going on right now. Taking a deep, relaxing breath in. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. That's the fruit of our practice. There's the Dhamma practice, basically and simply speaking, letting go. And the fruit of that practice, wiping the mud away from your eyes to see clearly the present moment and all its glory, and how simple it is and how wonderful. Once you start going in and eating from that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then he's a monk, he's a layperson. He's good, he's bad. He's the king, he's the peasant. She's this, she's that. I'm a football, then all the liking and disliking in samsara starts again, the wheel of birth and death. All of life, like Dhammarato said, just a series of mind moments from moment to moment to moment. Oh, what were you saying, buddy? I think somebody has a question.
I think he just said that he's not able to talk right now, and he has some things to say, but he's currently on the train.
You could type them, right, guys? Is there a way to type? I think he typed it, right?
He said something about when you get off this bus. I enjoyed the running. I enjoyed the running sequence.
Yeah, I could type type, sure. We're just chilling, so take your time. Go ahead, Michael.
Quick couple of comments. One is what Buddhadasa is talking about is what the Buddha calls, the lower three fetters. I won't go into why, but yeah, you're definitely talking about, people who they want the superstition, they want the rules, they want the identity in order to control the doubt, and that's the lower three fetters. Letting go of those three things and being okay with the way things are is a major threshold that a person can cross. But then the other thing I was going to say is that in relation to what Dhammarato is saying, is the way Ajahn Chah puts it. He says, the Dhamma is whatever you're holding right now. And the reason he says that is because whatever you're holding right now, that's what you need to let go of. And that's the Dhamma. Ajahn Chah is really good at putting things into simple terms.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool.
And like we were saying with Nibbana, the cool mind, everybody wants the goal. That's the goal, Nibbana. So we just relax and you attain it immediately here. You never lost it. So it's just right here. Cool mind, relaxed. Can you be okay with not being perfect? Can you be okay with the way things are, gently resting? As Ajahn Chah said, we're just gently resting in the way things are. Ajahn Chah, in this one book, I forget the name of it, I believe it was Food of the Heart. I believe at the end of the book, he was saying, all this stuff I've been saying, just forget it. All this Buddhist talk, all these things I mentioned in this book, just forget it. You come over here with me in the shade, and we'll just gently rest in the way things are. Forget about practice. Forget about these words. Forget about the. And he's just telling you in his own way, just relax. And you've arrived and you've made it. And there's nothing else to obtain, nothing else to strive for or try for. It's just this, just right now. It's always been just this. Think about back into your earliest memory. What has it been? How have you changed? It's always been just this. Sure, your brain may have developed. You may have gotten some more bullshit knowledge that's useless. But that's about it. Even when we were little, we always remember it's just this. But then somebody put an idea in your head. You have to become something. Somebody put an idea in your head. You want love, you have to do stuff. You want to have respect, Well, you better get a degree. You better get a good career. You better get this. But the baby, the little pure consciousness is just there. It's just chilling, you know? There's nothing to it. There's nothing to life. So I've been trying to find the middle. Uh-huh. Is that all he typed so far? That's all I've seen so far. Been trying to find the middle. Hope I didn't miss a whole bunch of his typing. What I'm talking.
So he said, so I've been trying to find the middle path lately after watching these Dhamma talk videos, and I've seen a complete rewiring of how I feel and think. And it says he's still typing.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, he's still typing, so.
I opened the chat.
Nice. How do I open that chat?
Maybe we can come back when he's done. When he finishes typing.
I wanted to ask Dhammadasa, you mentioned that we get kind of taught that we have to do something, that we have to become someone, that we have to get somewhere. And this is this like, just to get back to Paticca, what is it the right name? Paticca Samuppada. Is it like the 10th step, the step of like becoming, developing like new behaviors to kind of get what we crave for, and that keeps us in this cycle? Did I understand this correctly?
I don't know what that word was you said at the beginning.
Was
becoming.
Yeah.
Becoming?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't quite understand your question.
I mean, if I become something, then I hold something. The moment I become something, I hold something. Is it about that?
Well, it's more subtle than that. It's the word bhava, that's translated as becoming, in my opinion, is better translated as existence, but the word becoming works as well. A second.
And another meaning of the word is moving or flowing. Bhava.
Well, it's Ajahn Buddhadasa always used to say that first arises desire and then arises the desirer. And this is something you can see if you look very closely, that craving or desire is the reality of what we identify as ourselves, essentially. And he also used to say that time is the distance between the arising of a desire and the cessation of a desire. And that's also the span of a lifetime of a particular self. So just to make it simple, let's say that you are on a diet that restricts the consuming of sweets. And so, you have a certain existing self that is trying to fulfill the goal of that diet. But then you walk past an ice cream stand. And so that's a point of contact. And it's an ignorant contact, because if you don't have the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path as the operating system that's governing your experience at that time, then it's an ignorant contact. And then so a feeling will arise in response to that sight, pleasant feeling, and then a desire will arise for the ice cream. A mental image of you getting and acquiring the ice cream will follow that, and that's sort of the beginning of clinging. Then you want the ice cream, you got to have it, and then a storyline will then begin to create and negotiate, right? Like, oh, I should be able to have the ice cream, I've done good this week. And then that building pressure then turns into like the I who wants the ice cream. And the I who wants the ice cream is bhava. It's the existence. It is born in the mind, or it's been gestating in the mind, right? So you can think of it as like a 9-month-old baby at this point. It's the point of conception was that contact, seeing the ice cream, and then the feeling, craving, and clinging was the process of gestation, the baby growing. And then now it's a 9-month-old baby, it's ready to be born. That's the bhava. There's this strong existing sense of self that wants the ice cream. And all of your thoughts, all of the images in your mind, all the stories that are arising, there's even your limbic system is pumping hormones into the blood that's creating patterns of tension to make you uncomfortable in a way that makes you want the ice cream to relieve that tension. That's all part of this process. They kind of are simultaneously arisen in a way. But that's that existence, the I who wants the ice cream. And then when you give in and you get the ice cream, that's the birth, that's jati, that's the birth of action. And there's a momentary pleasure.
Birth is the 11th step, right?
Yeah. There's a moment of satisfaction because the pressure of the craving is relieved when you give in to the pressure, but it quickly degrades into dissatisfaction, right? That's the aging, illness, and death, and dukkha. That's the 12th step. The principle of impermanence applies to everything, all phenomena, but it also applies especially to craving and the pleasure that craving brings. As soon as you get the ice cream, the pleasure begins to age. The self that was developed in order to get you to take the ice cream, it ages and eventually dies. And then there's like, if you pay attention after you acquire any object of desire, there's like a depression that follows, like a momentary depression. And if it's something you've been chasing your whole life, like an Olympic medal that you thought was going to be satisfying, then that depression can be all consuming. If it's something small like an ice cream, it could come and go without you noticing it. But that's the dependent origination. That's sort of the unconscious mechanism that drives our behavior. And we do here with Dhammarato, and what Dasa is talking about is in practicing being satisfied, is we're trying to undermine that process. You don't actually have to know it and explain it in the way that I'm doing it to undermine it. You just have to remember that you can be satisfied. That way you can sort of rest with the way things are, because feeling is part of the 5 aggregates. So whatever feeling arises, if you can be okay with that, then you don't have to go through craving, clinging, existence, birth, aging, illness, death, and dukkha. You can dissolve the rest of that process by remembering to return to being satisfied. But anyway, that's what bhava is. It's the sense of self that arises in order to satisfy a desire, and it's always a different self. That's another thing that you'll notice. You have multiple selves in different contexts with different desires, and they arise in order to fulfill a desire, and then they pass away when that desire is fulfilled.
Yeah, it's like fishing, Have you ever gone fishing with your father?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Gone fishing with your father. Fishing is just a rope with a hook and some bait. That's it. That's don't worry, be happy. And you get better at don't worry, be happy the more you practice. But if you go fishing with your father and you bring your brother with you, and your brother has the fishing manual, and you go to put the worm on the hook and he says, wait, we got to go to step 1. Step 1 isn't putting the worm on the hook. Step 1 is making sure that we do our checklist and we have all our tackle box and we have all the bobbers and we have all the lines and all the right rods. And you're like, shut up, little brother. I'm trying to have fun fishing. Oh, but we have to do step 2. We have to scan the area for danger. And it's not that the fishing manual is wrong. He's obsessed with it. Who cares about the damn manual? Have fun fishing. Don't worry about step 1, step 2. What's this called in Pali? What's this vocabulary? Who gives a shit? Can you relax?
This is like I do a lot of music, and sometimes when I write music, I notice that I I'm too much focused on like the structure of how music currently is or should be. And then I realized, well, actually it's not about like conforming to that structure. I do music because I like it, because it's so much fun for me, and I don't have to kind of give these rules to myself.
Yeah. And like music, there's many different ways to play. You can study musical theory. You can be in, and ironically, a lot of the people who know the most theory sometimes, more often than not, aren't the ones who have the real talent of making music sound good. You know, sometimes it's a guy like Kurt Cobain who has no musical theory, but has his heart in it. And then you feel it, and then the music does what it does. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that the technical ability is bad. It doesn't mean that knowing theory is bad. But generally speaking, it's about having fun playing music, like you're saying. It's about the balance, you know? So it's not, don't study the polycan, don't learn the different vocabulary. It's not about that. But just make sure you get the basics right first. Gladdening the mind here and now. Don't worry, be happy. Forget the checklist. It's like going to the amusement park with the roller coasters. Say, hey, here's a book on how to have fun. Well, we have to make sure we have our fun hats and our fun this and our fun that. It's meaningless.
You want to hear
You
a
know,
funny
it's
story
not,
related to what you're saying,
It's
Buddhadasa?
go ahead, buddy.
it's funny
Um,
because when you said it's just like focus on the simple thing, instantly what came up in my mind is that, oh wow, I've been doing it all wrong over the time. That's what like the first thought that comes up. Uh,
Yeah, that's why
and I've wasted
Dhammaratos.
so much time, something like this. And
Yeah,
then I
that's why.
realized, well, whatever, I could just be okay with it here right now. It doesn't matter what I did
Yeah,
and what I will do.
and that's why
that's a state of
Dhammarato.
mind.
No matter how many times Dhammarato tells us the real definition of sati, forget meditation, forget mindfulness, sati, remembering to look and change, remembering that everything's fine right here, taking a deep breath of satisfaction. No matter how many times he tells us that, it's always people. How many minutes should I meditate a day? How many minutes this? It just, no matter how many times I've heard him talk for years, everyone's still asking, talking about meditation and what formation they should sit in and how long they should do it. Should they do it at work? Should they not? It's a lifestyle of just gladdening the mind here and now, just relaxing here and now. But go ahead, Michael. I know you wanted to say something.
Well, no, I just thought there was a funny Ajahn Chah story related to what you're saying. There was like a Pali scholar who came to see him once, and he wanted Ajahn Chah to talk about Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination. And I can't remember the name of the talk, but one of the images he uses is like, it's like falling out of a tree. You can't count the branches on the way down. It's just like, boom, you're in dukkha. But the funny part about it is you wouldn't know this if, I can't remember who it was, either Ajahn Jayasara or one of his students, but they pointed out that Ajahn Chah, throughout that whole talk, which he like spoke for like 3 hours, he was intentionally frustrating the Pali scholar by intentionally like defining things wrong, putting things in the wrong order, like and like just like torturing the guy,
So
by saying everything wrong against the suttas while like giggling and laughing, and like the guy could, not able to like talk or engage.
that's
Basically, the
all.
lesson is it goes back to the Dhamma is whatever you're holding on to right now, because that's what you have to put down. This guy came here wanting to see if this monk, who everybody says is an arahant, is truly an arahant, if he can talk about Paticca Samuppada in the right way. And here he is intentionally tormenting him to show him what dukkha really is.
That's like my new favorite story from Ajahn Chah. I haven't heard that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's what dukkha is.
Reminds me of Milarepa. He was giving a speech one time in front of all these Rinpoches, and he didn't know anything. They would mention even stuff from Pali Canon, even stuff from their own oral tradition that everyone kind of, even the children should know. And Milarepa didn't know it and didn't care. And the guy told Milarepa, "You're not a master." And Milarepa just waited till he left, and then Milarepa taught people who were interested in the real teachings. But that's what that reminds me. That's wonderful.
It's hilarious.
You know
And
the story about this? Do you know the
Go ahead.
story about Ajahn Chah smoking and Ajahn Sumedho's reaction? Do you know that story?
No.
Okay, so Ajahn Sumedho said like, "Oh, you're telling us not to smoke, and but you're smoking." And Ajahn Chah said, "Well, you made me the Buddha. You gotta find yourself as the Buddha."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
There-
Whatever you're holding on to, that's the Dhamma.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's great. I know that we're coming here to an hour, but I don't want to, if one or both of you or anyone has a comment on the intersection between not sure and the hindrance of doubt, because I realize that not sure can be tremendously liberating, but the doubt can be really destructive. And so for me, I just am compounding that a little bit, and I find it difficult to discern.
Would anybody like to comment on what he said between kind of doubting that doesn't cause dukkha and doubting that causes dukkha?
Well, I think I heard Dhammarato talk about this in some call. Maybe it was also a one-on-one thing, I don't know. But I think it was something like he talked about the difference between doubt and like questioning. So say, like what I did, I wanted to understand something out about Paticca Samuppada. And this could have arisen like out of doubt, maybe, that I maybe doubt in the practice that Dhammarato told me, or in the teachings, whatever. And therefore I seek for more or something else that might be able to fill that place. Or yeah, I could also like engage it from another point of view where I want to learn more and I don't doubt it, and just like I question things. Maybe I question reality, or I question why a lightning strike hit right here and not right there. So I question some things, and that's like my motivation to learn. So that's like maybe the difference between learning or wanting to know out of doubt, or just out of questioning something.
I like it. I like it. Anything more? Anybody?
For me,
I
I
want
feel
more. Just kidding.
for me the doubt that causes, or the questioning that causes dukkha, is this kind of, I don't know, but I need to know. I need to find out. And then the other, I don't know. What a relief! I don't have to know.
Yeah. I see. Thank you. That's good. I mean, the
Yeah,
other one was good too, but
and uncertainty, is, or unsure, as you put it. That's how Ajahn Chah translates anicca. So that's wisdom. Doubt is ignorant. As Dhammarato said, one of the reasons why the Buddha refuted all doctrines of self is because there's no satisfying answer to what is the self. So he just threw out the question. That's a wise response to not sure, right? So it's being okay not having the answer to questions that aren't relevant, unfit for attention. Like knowing what's unfit for attention, things that, are subject to uncertainty, which is just about everything. Being okay with not having the answers. That's sort of the wise reflection on not sure. Whereas, doubt is endless. There's just an endless amount of what about this, what about that, but that the mind can come up with, when the only thing that's really fit for attention is this is dukkha, this is the origin of dukkha, this is the cessation of dukkha, this is the way leading out of the cessation of dukkha. That's that's, you know, bringing the mind back to the Four Noble Truths. So knowing what suffering is, and knowing its origin and craving, and how to let go of craving. Doubt is just one more form of craving. So letting go of doubt is being okay with not knowing, I guess you can say, and redirecting your attention to the one thing that's fit for attention, which is knowing dukkha and abandoning its cause. Knowing and letting go, as Ajahn Chah puts it.
Hey,
Can I say a few things?
before we go, let's get to that dude's question who is typing it. I think he can talk now.
Oh,
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Wait, so I just wanted to add to the doubt stuff. Sometimes to avoid the dukkha from doubt, I like to turn it into curiosity, and then rather than letting that curiosity run on, I like to isolate that curiosity onto that like one specific thing I was curious about, and so then I can drop that curiosity and then pick it back up if I want to, do some research if I want to, or not. You know, either way is perfect. Either is fine. And in that way, rather than being a negative thing in my mind, like, oh, I'm worried about this, I'm doubting this, I'm paranoid about what the result is going to be. I'm just curious, and that's all it is. You know, it's just that.
I see.
Very
Yeah.
good.
But that helps a little with the action part, because to me the doubt has a connection to action, because it's like, if I want to take an action or I do not want to take an action, I can't discern whether this action will lead to dukkha or not, because I can't know the future, etc. Then I can't take an
Exactly.
action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
But
like
if it's
this.
curiosity, you could just be like, oh, I'm curious about this. Maybe tomorrow I might look it up, but if not, it's fine.
Right.
Very good. Anybody else have anything that's on their mind before we part ways?
Oh, yeah, I could talk about the stuff I wrote about in chat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been working for an air show in the UK for one of like the largest aerospace companies, and it's all meaningless stuff, right? But I talk to a lot of the like individuals that come in and out because I'm at the cloakroom, so I deal with their bags. And one thing I wanted to note is like there was one guy today who spoke about pronunciation about Vipassana, I think, and he was genuinely the most lively, enjoyable. I don't know how to say it, but he was the most at peace and content person in that room, of like full of businessmen and rich people. So yeah, and another thing is so I'm on the merchandise team, right? I give out the freebies to right, and a bunch of my coworkers, they're like, oh, I want this for myself. I want this for myself. And at the start, I was like, I do want this for myself as well. But over the few days, I've tried to reframe it into being, because I mean, I was aware that like craving these things, I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to get rid of it because I can't keep everything, right? There's too much, and I run out of space eventually, regardless of what it is. And so I've been reframing my craving into, so for other context, I was watching a Dhammarato talk, and he was saying Ajahn Chah was talking about how Western monks lack generosity or something like that. And so one thing I tried to embody was turning that craving of wanting to keep it for myself into generosity. Because I would always have the memories of doing this event, but people who maybe didn't have the opportunity to come or opportunity to work for whatever reason, they might not have been able to experience it. They might not have the opportunity to have any of these items. And obviously they don't have to want the items, but so what I've been doing is, I'll show you, I got a collection. I'm gonna, there's like security guards like on the way in and out, right? So they obviously don't have the opportunity to come. I've collected a bunch of like clay models to give out to them, and like portable chargers and like tags and and there's these like really rare stuff. Like there's not many of them, but there's like these cool medals that I've been giving out. I just thought it was a good transition from craving into something positive, you know? So yeah. And I said I might keep something like a medal for myself, but I'm happy to like, you know, if I lose it or if I need to get rid of it, it's all okay. Like it's all as it should be, and like it's nice to have a little memento, but if it's gone, it's fine. It's all good.
Actually, I think this is such
Good.
a great step to kind of become aware of these cravings that we have and kind of create the like a little bit of space so that like when before we were craving a lot and it was instantly connected to actions and
Yeah.
like took like you became aware of this craving even though that
Mm.
it would not fade away, it would not go away, it would
No.
stay, but you created you like a distance, like more distance to it, and you would not have to connect it instantly to also acting in that way. That's
Exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah. And because like
It's-
when I look at the boxes
Sorry.
on boxes of these stuff, yeah, sorry.
Oh no, go.
Hmm?
Just make it quick because I gotta get going.
Yeah, all good. Because like I go to the
Quick,
back
go ahead.
room and I'm like, there's like loads of these things. Like I don't need it. It's nothing. But anyway, yeah,
Yes.
that's it. That's what good.
We
Yeah,
Need it, you can be happy without it, and
exactly. Yeah.
by giving it away, you can make others happy.
Exactly. Mhm.
White happiness, isn't that great?
Thank you, Jonas. Well said.
You guys are awesome. I gotta get going. Much peace and love.
Thank you, Dhamma.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for listening.
Thanks for the
Thank
Thank
talk.
you
you all.
guys.
Thank
Good
you.
talkers.
Guys.
Thank you.